call the meeting to order. It's 6:10. And we'll start with number one. We wanted to recognize Beth for all the work that she's done on this committee and for the library. And I'm sorry she wasn't here to hear all the accolades, but she has been really amazing through this whole construction and keeping the library up and running, and during a pandemic. I don't know how she did it. Maybe that's why she's gone, because it was a lot. Yeah, it was quite a lot, I'm sure. And then when she moved, it was even, more difficult. So I really want to thank her for everything that she did for us and for the town and for the community. So with that, thank you, Beth.
Yeah, ditto.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else had anything else they wanted to add.
I agree. We wouldn't have the library edition if Beth had not been the director. That this was the third attempt over a decade. And I think we ended up with a building that was a better building. We still have issues finishing it up, but it was a lot of work, and I appreciate all that she did to get us where we are.
Yeah. Hang on just a second. Ron's trying to get in also and can't, so I'm just going to tell him to make sure he copies and links.
Looks like someone else is connecting.
Okay, maybe it's
Oh, there was like 18 invitations.
It's Lisa Rice.
One of me is bad enough, right? Like a Brady Bunch pack of them.
So whoever just came on, is that Julie? Or
Actually, that's me. I had to use Lisa's
Yeah.
invitation because none of mine would work.
That's okay, Julie. We're all under Lisa, just about. So, thank you.
Lisa, you never look so good.
Julie, we were just recognizing Beth for all the hard work that she did on this committee and for the community and for the library, and how she kept everything going.
Yeah,
So,
she sure did.
yeah. So we just wanted to say that. Lisa had sent out the minutes. Does anybody, do we want to review? If you have reviewed those, can we go ahead and approve them? Somebody want to make a motion?
I make
So
a motion
moved.
to approve the meetings from September 2023.
And somebody second it?
Second.
Great, excellent. Okay, by roll call, Lisa,
Aye.
the original Lisa, Julie,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
and John,
Aye.
and Mary. Aye. Declare the motion carried. Well, let's talk about the flooding damage. Mark, do you want to jump in on this?
So I don't, I haven't talked to William in a couple weeks. I don't know if the last storm, which was maybe a month ago-ish, if more damage was, here's Ron. So I know on the, back in the fall, late summer, early fall, we had a big event behind the building, and that caused some damage, which has, talking to William, so William was taking that on to address the front of the building. At that point, there was no flooding in the teens exterior door, which had been a problem throughout the project, taking water. That one didn't get any water. The last time we spoke with Beth and William and Ron and Matt, William was kind of taking care of there was nothing we could hold the contractor to. They didn't install anything wrong. The doors on the community room and the children's room aren't meant to stop the amount of water that came rushing down the back of the building. And it was just a bad situation. And the library wasn't alone in getting flood damage and so forth during that storm. However, on the other side, the teens room, what's up? On the teens room side, there's the exit door from the teens room has been an issue that we've addressed a couple times. They built a little, like a concrete wash in front of the door to, if water found its way there, to kind of push it away. We did some more work around the frame. I can't remember, Ron, if we even added a little kind of a hood over the door.
Yeah, there was a drip edge added
Drip
over
edge,
the door frame.
yeah. So we've done a few things, but it's a tough corner because that's the intersection of the old and the new building, and the water comes down, and when you have an event when you have a lot of water, I think sometimes the gutter is overrun, that it comes down the downspout and kind of spills, and the door is right there, and it's been an issue. I think that might be an ongoing issue. It used to have, or it does have, what's called a drop sweep. When the door is closed, the sweep drops down to hopefully prevent water, but the screws are rusted because they got wet, and so I think they have to be replaced. That's one of the items on CTA's kind of to-do list, which wasn't really, they didn't install it incorrectly. It was underwater, got rusty, and now it doesn't drop anymore the way it should. And maybe it's some WD-40 will loosen things up and it'll work, but that I think is going to be an issue. From a contractual standpoint, there's not much we can do on the backside with the community and the children's room to hold, say, CTA accountable, because again, there was nothing nothing was installed at the wrong height, the wrong elevation, the wrong way. It was just a bad situation, unfortunately.
I was told there was landscape fabric put over the drains to prevent construction debris from getting in, and then that was not removed, and that's why it was clogged up. Is that not accurate?
I don't know. I know there was one drain where there was fabric to prevent the mulch all around from clogging the drain, to allow water to go down the drain. Because sometimes when you remove the fabric and you have a kind of a rush of water, it'll scoop up all the mulch and everything that's around, and it'll just sweep it down into the drain, and then you end up with a clogged drain. So some people are proponents of keeping that fabric there to allow only the water to go down and nothing else. Others are proponents of, when you're done, rip it up. So I heard one drain still had fabric on it. I don't know. It was kind of like a rumor. I never heard, William or somebody confirm that or not.
What we heard as trustees is that the fabric was on both the drains and the back, and the thought was that was the cause of it, that it didn't allow enough water to go down the drain. So those fabric things have been removed, and like a barrier of stone has been put around it. I don't know, maybe 2 feet around it, so that the mulch was far away from the actual physical drain.
Okay.
I know there was also mention of the South Street curbs. And the thought was maybe there was so much water coming down South Street, and because of the curb cuts for that house that's up there, that a lot of that water got directed down behind the library, and that might have added to the issue. But I think that might have been an unofficial comment.
Yeah, I know. It seemed like once it came around the corner, it was almost tight to the building instead of the other way. So any water that came down was just running alongside the building, and then it ran inside the building where it could, and where it could was at the door openings. And so, and again, doors aren't meant to prevent that amount of, to stop that amount of water. Rain, yes, but rushing water, no.
And then the other update we got, just as far as the actual repairs, is that the community room is due any day. It was supposed to be done a week and a half ago. All the carpet has arrived somewhere, but not at the library yet. But presumably that's just going to take a couple days to replace all the community room carpet. And then the children's room, town has been battling with insurance, and I think they've finally agreed to replace that whole carpet, but it's about 6 to 8 weeks out to get the carpet from the manufacturer.
Did all the children's rooms, did that, all of the carpet, was it damaged?
No, it was just,
I didn't think in the children's room it was bad.
it wasn't damaged, but I think they decided that they couldn't find a close enough match to the existing carpet,
Oh, okay,
that they've agreed to do the whole thing.
okay.
Are
Was
they
it
replacing it with
discontinued?
What was that, John?
are they replacing it with a carpet that the Disability Commission, Accessibility Commission is pleased with? Because it seems like after it was installed, they didn't like it. I thought that was not a good choice.
Well, the story I got I think the story we got from William was that carpet was good, was all good, and that's what they're replacing it with. It just happens to be a different dye lot, which is why they couldn't just replace part of it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's a dye lot issue.
That makes
not a
sense.
discontinued.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
So
Okay,
hopefully 6 to 8 weeks, the carpeting will come in, and then there'll be some kind of massive reinstallation of all that carpet.
So that's all in the town's hands, right?
Right.
Correct. That's all William Blake that's been handling that.
Okay,
And
great.
are there any deductibles? Are we responsible for deductibles, or is that coming out of another funding source?
I've heard nothing about deductibles. And I don't think Williams reached out to anyone in the building committee for that.
I haven't heard anything. Lisa?
So for the minutes, I'm writing about the fabric being removed, the landscaping fabric. I'm writing about some potential the rain coming down, drainage from South Street, but we truly don't know what the reason is that this has happened. Is that a correct statement?
I think so. I think that's a correct statement.
Yeah.
So
I would
that
say
means-
that, yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
That means it could happen again.
Well, what Mark is saying is that CTA doesn't have any responsibility at this point. Correct, Mark?
Yeah, and I think, yes, contractually, there's nothing that we can say to them that you did wrong and you caused this to happen. But for this happening again standpoint, I think what Doug said about measures that were taken around the drains certainly would help. Maybe look at the curb cut at South Street to diminish, if a substantial amount of water came from that direction and then rushed down the hill, then maybe we put some sort of diverter or stop that from happening again in the future. But if the water comes down and it's hugging the building, then it's somewhere along, it's probably going to get in the building.
What does this committee think of that? I don't feel great about that.
No, I don't, I mean,
Oh,
yeah, the water's been, extraordinary this past year, for sure. But, I mean, wouldn't they have to look at that, Ron, during design for,
Yeah, pitching away from the
people?
building.
Yeah, pitching it away
Yeah.
from the building.
Yeah, they take that into account when they design the landscaping and the sidewalks so that it pitches away from the building, but also down towards the drains at the parking lot.
So again, contractually,
Mhm.
has the design team looked at that? Taken another look at that to see what's going on?
I think at the end, when the landscape architect came out to review it, I think, if you were to have a pitcher of water and you walked outside the door of the children's room and poured that, it would flow in the right direction. It would lead, go away from the building and toward the parking lot. But the issue was the volume of water that was rushing down the hill. And when that happened, you've got the house next door, which is at a higher elevation than the patio outside the mechanical space or the children's room. And so that's, against the building, the grade is pushing you toward the building. If you don't, toward the library, if you don't have a lot of water, once you get to the library, it's sending it the other way. But if you get a lot, I think it just kind of rushed down and created this little river.
Correct, but that building's always been there, and we'd have to, I mean, somebody would have to let us know, was it flooded in the back there before when the big
Right.
storm would come? You know, it's
I
just
think-
hard to understand.
Yeah, and
Go
to
ahead.
me, the community patio, I mean, I know the grade is, I can't remember what Ron said the grade had to be. To me, that community patio looks extremely flat. And the drain is on the other side of that wall. So water in the patio doesn't really have a way to flow downhill that easily. So I don't know if we should suggest to the town that they make some measurements to see if that grade is proper.
Yeah, because I'm gonna bet we're gonna get rain like that again. And we can't continually shut down the library and replace the carpet and put in an insurance claim every single time this happens. Like,
Right.
okay, if we can't agree on like who's at fault for this, you know, it's like different buckets for me, right? Like, yep, I think we should absolutely look at the design of it. It's like this shouldn't happen. But it is happening. How are we going to fix it? And how are we going to prevent it from happening in the future?
Right, so I had asked the same questions to William a while back, and he said that the town would be looking at all of this and that it wasn't anything that we needed to vote on. But we also want to make sure that this doesn't get, you know, passed over or not thought
Right.
about again. So I can make the recommendation from the committee to the town, to William and Evan, to say we need, you know, we would like this to be looked at further.
Yeah, at least a statement, and then ask them for like some kind of summary report for the committee.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, the drawings are on record with the town. Everything was reviewed by the appropriate building officials prior to construction, so they have access to all the design drawings as part of their investigation.
And maybe that's why William's saying that the town will take care of it at this point.
Right.
So, let's see.
I know Andy's raising his hands. I'm not sure you can see him.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andy.
That's okay. I think you kind of actually just touched on what I was going to hit. In you know, to Lisa's point, what we've diagnosed so far, I think are the next steps. It's making adjustments, you know, around the building if we can to possibly move water that way. The curbing has been identified. That's something that we can have some engineering done, or the town, I should say, not we as a committee, and have that addressed. I think if we wanted to, as a committee, make that statement, we certainly can. I was kind of, I guess, wondering to what end. If the town is going to be retaking most of this project anyways, it's already an issue that they're well aware of and intimately familiar with. You know, I'm not sure there's much for them to report back to us, especially if we're discussing closing out the remainder of the CTA contract and this being one of our last couple meetings. It's going to be, you know, in their hands anyways, whether we have an opinion about it or not, really.
No, I agree. I think at least I think what Lisa is alluding to is that we just want to make sure we do our due diligence and make sure that it is going to be an issue probably
Right.
moving forward. But agreed, it's not anything that we can solve at this point, especially if CTA if they are finalizing the contract with CTA.
Is
Would
this-
it be? Go ahead, Lisa.
I was just gonna say, is this something that, Doug, you're on the trustees, right? Is this
Yep.
something that the trustees can that would make me feel better as we dissolve, which makes me very happy as well. You know, I've got agendas and minutes from 2017, but it would make me happy as a taxpayer to just know that somebody else is watching it. I have no idea. You know, I'm not saying William and Evan are going to drop the ball on this, but just a second set of checks and balance would make me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the trustees have all the same concerns, right? That they've come up with some kind of assessment of what caused it and to prevent it in the future. So the trustees are definitely doing that with William.
Whenever we do a
Oh.
final closeout of this committee, I would think, or we could vote on recommendations that these are the things that still concern us that aren't resolved, so that we've made it clear and that we address that to the town administrator, the selectmen, and the trustees. So everybody's put on notice that we realize that we have finished our role, but there's still work to be done to correct these issues. And they're pointed out, and it can't be, people won't be able to say, oh, we didn't know, or it wasn't clear, but to make it abundantly clear that these are issues that need to be dealt with at the town level in some way, whether it's the highway dealing with the street, the trustees dealing with whatever, but both that door if it's going to be continually leaking, on both sides. I think that this is something that, with changing of people on all these committees, it'll come up and they'll say, we didn't know about this, or we weren't aware of this, but this way it's in black and white and it's there. So, and people will have something to at least say, okay, we need to do these 3 things. And I think that we've caught it.
Yeah, I know as a person, just a community member, right? Like when we built the fire station, there was something wrong. And I was like, why didn't that committee know that? And then with the high school, right? Like they were just redoing this past summer, all of the HVAC stuff. And I'm like, why didn't this committee? We're now that committee, like we're now those people. So I just want to make sure that if it's clear to everyone, who's now responsible for this and how we got here. So thank you.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of HVAC, how is it going on in the library? Wasn't there a controls issue for a while? I always remember Beth bringing that up. Did that finally all get resolved?
Yes and no. So just recently, I don't know which one you're talking about. Just recently, there was a part, like a control module that went bad, and it had to be replaced, and that caused issues
Right.
in rooms. But that was more of that wasn't even a warranty item, because it was, it's been 18 months since they've been in the building, and it was functioning correctly, and then it just stopped working. Prior to that, I know William was working with Renaud, who is doing the service contract on the HVAC. And I'll segue a little bit. There's 3 items that were left on CTA's kind of punch list. One is access for Renaud in the front lobby, which they just hadn't done on behalf of Renaud. And the way it was left was, Renaud, you do it, do whatever you need to do to the ceiling to get access, and just bill CTA directly. So Renaud was just going to take it on just to get it done. And so they've kind of taken over the building, so to speak, from a control standpoint, from a service standpoint. So in that respect, I don't think there's been any issues. There was a recent issue in the last few months because of that one module that stopped working.
I came to a meeting, I'm in a meeting room just to kind of put my eyes on things after we're through. I'm in a little meeting room and it is freezing in here, like there's no heat on, and it's not that cold outside. So, and I'm usually hot. So it's,
Is
I'll
there a
ask somebody when I
thermostat in that
leave.
room?
You can't change it. Let me look. It says it's 67.
Okay.
It says it's 67.
So it might be, I mean, it's 6:30. I don't know what the set points. It may go down to 67 at, 5 o'clock at night or something, and go up to 70 in the morning. I'd have to look at the schedule, but I think, if 67 feels freezing to some people and not so bad for others. So I don't know. It may be, John, the temperature that it's supposed to be right there. I don't know. We'd have to look at the schedule, but that's what like Renaud, before Beth would call and say, hey, the quiet study room on the second floor is cold. We'd make a service call to Renaud, and usually they could log in remotely and change some set points because 67 in a tiny room is different than 67 in a big room. Or might feel different, might feel cold in that little room. And so, but they could do it remotely, but I'm concerned a little bit with Beth's absence, like who is making that call to Renaud? I don't know. So that faculty or staff may just be wearing a coat in their office because they're always freezing. And why won't this, stupid thermostat ever work? But nobody's making that call to Renaud to fix it. So they're just living with it. I'm not sure if that's the case either.
So you had mentioned 3 issues. I've got one of them down.
So there are 3 issues: the access controls at the lobby, the door sweep at the teens exterior room, which I referenced as far as the water issue, and that again, we're getting pushback from CTA saying we installed it. It was working correctly. Now the screws are rusted because it was underwater. That's not our fault. So that was an issue. And then the other was the last change order on the project was, if you remember, they installed some interior storefront doors at the community room and the teens room. In the teens room, one of the doors, when you open it, it rattles. It almost sounds like there's a screw bouncing around, and it drives people crazy. Everything works fine. It looks good. When you open the door, it rattles, and we couldn't get CTA to come back to do that. So talking with William, the thought was, and CTA initially, the thought was, let's just hold $10,000, which is about $9,000 more than all this stuff is worth. But we'll hold $10,000, credit the town a change order so they can address the rattling door and the access and these other things on their own. And let's just close this thing and go home. Spoke to Evan. He was fine with that, but he was upset that it's been so long and CTA hasn't come back. So he actually upped it to $20,000. Ron issued a credit change order for that amount, and it's sitting on CTA's desk. They're hesitant to sign it because it's twice what they thought it was going to be. So my recommendation tonight would be, in the meantime, CTA has never requisitioned since I think May of last year. So it's not like they've been banging on the town's door, pay us our money and so forth. But at the last building committee that approved a pay app, I think it was in May, and there were 75, I pulled it up before the meeting, I think it was $75,000 left on the contract still tonight. So my recommendation would be pay all but 20. And then we would just have that credit change order. If it's at 20,000, then we're done. If it's reduced to 10, then we'd pay them another 10. But at least get us down to the point where all we have left is the amount of this credit change order. Because contractually, I wouldn't want to say those storefront doors, those were installed. You've had, quote, beneficial use from them for a few months now. So we should pay for that work that was done. And that wasn't CTA, that was Chandler Architectural. So Chandler's looking for their money. CTA is not paying it because the committee hasn't approved that yet, but at the same time, CTA hasn't asked for it either. So it's not this committee's fault, but that would be my recommendation. If the town, Evan and William are good with 20,000, which again, I think is excessive. If we can get that would be great. I would process a payment of all but 20,000 and then get us closer to the finish line.
I have a question about the door sweep. The door sweep is at the bottom of the door, and its purpose is to keep water out. And so therefore it's going to get wet. Why would you put screws in it that are going to rust? Because if that's its job is to keep moisture out, it's obviously going to get wet, keeping the moisture out, right?
In theory, yes, but the the sweep goes at the bottom of the door and then it drops down. And so under the door, you've got like a half inch, I don't know what the gap is, Ron, but 5/8, a half inch gap. And that's where that's the gap that the sweep covers. The screws are probably 1.5 inches above that. So if the screws are underwater and the door is under 2 to 3 inches of water, they're saying that's not an installation issue. That's an environmental issue. And so anyway, so that was and we're talking about, half a dozen, maybe 10 screws that are, 10 cents each or something like that.
Well, I mean,
But
again, then
we're-
why aren't they fixing it? That's an easy fix.
It's a very easy fix, but, and so in the end, they said for 10, if you're going to give the town $10,000, we'll take it. We'll buy the screws. That'll cost, $1, and we'll keep the other $9,999. So it was just hard to get them to come back because the project just it reached this point where nothing was happening. We were kind of spinning sideways. So I was trying to just push it toward closure, and I offered that up. And William and Evan said, fine, but Evan just said, all right, if we're going to do that though, let's get the town what we can, and let's double it at 20,000.
Have
Yeah,
they
do-
actually, so do we have an open invoice for the 70K?
No, there is no invoice from CTA, so that's still
Okay.
out. So it's not like you haven't paid a bill or anything like that. That's the balance that's left on the contract.
So will
That's
they
a
be billing us?
retainage, right?
I'm sorry, Lisa?
Will they be billing us, or can we just be done without paying that?
You can do a couple things. You can just sit and say, hey, they haven't invoiced us, so we haven't paid them. You can do that. And but that by default will keep the contract open. You could, we could prompt them and say, we're arguing over this $20,000 balance. Invoice us for everything but that 20,000. We want to get you closer to done. So do that. Or you could proactively just pay them all but 20,000 without an invoice and just say, here, in good faith, we're trying to close this out. While we're waiting for you to act on this credit change order, we're going to pay you the balance. But I think, if depending on what the committee wants to do, I could go back to Matt tomorrow and just say, send us a bill for 50,000. We'll pay that. And at least that's 50,000 of your money, not 70, but it's 50. And then that gets us closer to the finish line.
I don't like to send people money until they bill me. That's just my.
Yeah. That's a valid argument. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had asked William a while back, should we, should we be voting on this at all? And he hasn't answered. It was should we vote on the outstanding punch list items? So I'm not sure how the town wants us to.
Is
So-
William getting the bills or mail, or who's handling that day-to-day operation in the library?
The day-to-day, I don't know, but this because the contract's still open, a pay application from CTA would go through Ron and myself, and we haven't seen anything since May. And so you don't need the committee doesn't need the town's approval. If I go back to Matt and say, if we're arguing over 20,000, you're owed 75,000. We're not arguing about that 55. We're arguing about the last 20. So send me a bill for the 55 or whatever that number is, and we'll pay it. And so that's money owed. It's not, no one's arguing it. So you don't need permission, or you don't need William to weigh in. I'd want them to weigh in on that last 10 to 20,000, certainly.
So
And I
how do
think
they
Evan-
typically do it, Mark? Do they just send final rec for the retainage of that?
So
Owed.
so Ron issued a change order for minus $20,000. And so if they approve it, their contract's going to go down from 70 to 50. The committee pays 50 and we're done. But until they sign that, and so they're arguing, they don't want to sign it because it went from 10 to 20. And he's saying, hey, what happened? And Evan was just upset that it was taking so long. So he doubled it, which I certainly understand. So that's how so their contract is actually reduced by that amount. it's not like you short pay them 20,000. You pay them the contract in full, but the contract's been reduced by 20.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. Why is it considered a change order? Wouldn't it just be to close out the contract?
It's an
by the-
administrative change order, so it's a credit change order because the value of the contract is being adjusted up
Okay.
or down. It's a change order.
Okay, any other thoughts about it? How would the committee like to proceed?
I mean, it seems like that 50,000 we're going to pay. We have to pay. It's in the
Right.
contract. So I would I don't know if we should vote on it now or just request Mark to have them submit an invoice for $50,000 or whatever minus the 20K holdback.
Yeah, I don't think you need to vote. You'd vote when the pay app got back to you.
Right.
So if you say, yes, Mark, please do that, then I'll get back to Matt and say, submit a pay app to get us to that $20,000 balance. And then that would circulate and you'd vote on it just like you have any other pay app.
Anyone else? Well, I agree with Doug. We need to pay some money. I think that's
I mean, it's surprising they haven't sent an invoice because
Right,
it's like,
right.
it's a lot of money.
Yeah, just from a business operations standpoint, it's odd that, they haven't billed in 7 months.
That's not the first time we've had vendors not send us bills timely, so.
True.
I mean, we could just hold out and wait till they send something in. It's sitting on their desk. They need to make a decision on the, 10 or 20 grand, and that's going to be probably some conversations back and forth with the town.
Right.
But
I'm
this
assuming
committee,
that's-
we can't close out this committee until we've paid that last invoice, right?
Right.
It never ends.
So it seems like,
So I'm a-
assuming that the town agrees that this 20,000 holdback is appropriate and we agree with that, it seems reasonable that we would just move forward with getting the rest of it invoiced.
To me, that would show from one standpoint, it would show good faith effort that you're trying to close this project out. Help us CTA close this project out. We're doing what we can. Now we need you to process this change order or make that call or have that conversation or whatever. Let's get this thing going.
That's a tough one though, Mark, because we've been trying to close this out since
I
May.
know. I know.
so-
Yeah, you're right.
Should William be invited in attending these meetings?
I did put him on.
Yeah.
I did ask
Okay.
him to attend. For whatever reason, he didn't respond, and I didn't hear back from him when I asked him about these questions too. So I'll follow up again tomorrow. And see what happens there. But in the meantime, I don't know what. I'm getting feedback. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I think we have to wait on it, Mark, and just get an answer from the town,
Yeah, that's fine.
because it sounds like the committee is not all in sync. Not hearing a lot of feedback from everyone. So,
That's fine. I mean, you certainly, like Lisa said, we haven't been invoiced, so don't bet.
Why wouldn't they invoice us? I don't understand.
Neither do I. So, especially because if this was just CTA's money and there was a retainage held and we're having this discussion about these 3 or 4 punch list items, I get it. But they must be getting calls from like Chandler Architectural, who did that change order work and said, we did the work, pay us. And I can't imagine CTA is paying Chandler and then not asking to be paid by the committee. That doesn't make sense either. So, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
This doesn't impact like the town's rating or anything, credit or anything like that? No,
No.
all right, then
No.
I'm all for waiting. I like seeing people, I guess, every couple months. Like, I'm all for waiting, but
Yep.
I'm just one person.
Yeah, I would really like to disband the committee because we've been in a holding pattern for quite a while. But I guess we can't until this contract is signed off.
Right.
Okay.
So there's a change order sitting on Matt's desk from CTA. I can push him to act on that one way or the other, respond. They can't just sit on it.
Yeah, if you could do
We'll
that,
see
and
where that goes.
I'll contact William also.
Okay.
Okay. So that pretty much answers, so we have no bills that are outstanding. We have
No.
just this change order. It'll become a change order. You don't have anything else, Mark?
No.
Or Ron?
No, I'm all set.
Who do we as a committee talk to find out what our current balance is? What are, like, do we have money to pay the 70 grand? Or 50 grand? Is that William?
You did in May. I don't know. Yes, that'd be William. I
Okay.
don't know what's happened since May. Like say the repairs in the community room, if that came out of these funds or what. So I don't know, but he'd be the person to talk to.
Oh, Grafton Schools is closing. I have my call from,
How much snow are you supposed to get out there?
But
A foot?
Yeah, about 12 inches, yeah.
they keep reducing it though, right now.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
In
the
the-
last
in
one I
the-
saw it down by
In the
6.
news tonight. So 6 to 8, maybe not a foot. Or maybe we will. Who knows?
We're supposed to get 5 to 8 down here in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was more south.
John, did you have anything that you needed to share on the Historic District Commission?
we did talk about the committee and the screen, and I said, well, the screen that Beth had said that's the number one priority for the Leeds money, and so that kind of, I need to ask that question: did the final application get submitted to Leeds? It seems like, I don't know if the trustees are handling that, if that's something that was through Beth, to know, did we get all the paperwork submitted timely? And when will we find out what level we achieved? And when will we ultimately get a check?
Okay, good questions on that. Doug, I'm not sure if the trustees had anything to do with that, but I do know that, there was discussions going back and forth. Did we want to do the Leeds? We were going for Leeds Silver. They said, oh, if you want to go for Lead Gold, you needed to get so many more points. And perhaps we'd want to go for that. And I presented that to William, and he said, yeah, at this point, they would just go for the, stick with the Lead Silver.
Correct.
Because it would be too costly to go with the Leeds Gold at this point. It would have been very difficult during design as well to get to that lead Gold.
Yeah, it's not easy to achieve.
No, not easy to achieve,
Yeah.
and it can be costly just for a plaque. So not just for a plaque, but
We don't want the
And-
plaque, we want the money.
yeah, no, yeah. So the town was supposed to be taking care of that. I hope they did.
That's the last information I have too.
Okay.
Okay, so Mark, Cynthia submitted all of her paperwork
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up as we're talking.
Yeah, for this process, lead silver was, if I remember correctly, was definitely achieved. There were a few items from one of the engineers that had to be uploaded.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, that's all been addressed.
I believe that's the case. I can't find the email at the moment, but I thought she said April.
Yeah, April 1st, it needs
yeah.
to all be in by.
Well,
yeah.
it's in, everything's in, and so they're waiting for
Review.
formal review. Yeah, and I thought she said by April, her submission will be done, but I'll follow up with her tomorrow after the meeting.
Yeah,
And
and if you
then
could
what-
just make sure from her that, I'm sorry, if you could just make sure
No,
from
go
her
ahead.
that that the town did say lead silver.
It is silver, I know that.
Awesome.
that,
Okay,
yeah.
because she was asking if we wanted to go for the lead gold.
Yeah, basically you'd have to pay.
Yeah.
For additional credits to get to gold, and it wasn't worth it. So.
Right. That was our thought
And then
as
once,
well.
once
Go
we
ahead.
find out, or once we get the official lead silver, then that has to get like resubmitted to the, to
To the
where to get that,
to
the money.
MBLC,
Yeah.
Mass Board of Library Commissioners, and then they'll do their review. Once it gets to that point, it's almost like perfunctory. They'll get it, review it, approve it, and then the town will get their check.
And have we received all of the fundings from the MBLC already? Or is that still something that needs to continue? Because I kind of
Yeah.
forget there was that offset of us building it prior to getting the funds. Did we end up getting all of the funds from them?
Yeah, the last one was with the certificate of occupancy. That was the last trigger,
Oh, okay,
other than the lead component. So that's all set.
okay.
Okay. I think that's all we had. Does anybody have anything else they need to add?
I would just add from the capital campaign perspective, you may recall we had agreed to pay for the the capital campaign agreed to pay for the children's shelving. There was like $25,000 additional shelving, and that check was sent to the town a couple weeks ago. So that should be added to our account, the building account by now.
Okay.
Approximately how much money is left in that fund? In the capital campaign fund?
Capital campaign, it's about 100K. I mean, we have a number of commitments too, but it's about that.
And are you trying to keep that fund alive so that as things come along, are you hoping just to spend it all and then be done? Did your committee want to disband, or do you want to be a resource in the next few years as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to keep funding to maintain many of the items that the capital campaign paid for, like the green roof and the landscaping. And the idea would be that the capital campaign could continue for future projects, future fundraising and future projects.
Okay. Thanks to you and Dana and everybody. That was a big help.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a few projects left. We have some of the raised garden beds for the community gardens. We have some lighting in the back patio, and we have the musical instruments for the children's room, which we couldn't install because of the flooding. So those are the 3 projects we have left to finish up this spring.
Okay, great. So we're not disbanding yet, but I think we're all.
So the
set
next
for
meeting
today.
will be whenever
To
we
be
need to have a
determined.
meeting to
Right.
pay the bill. So
Correct.
they'll be in touch with you and you'll be in touch with me to
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
do
Yes,
the
will have to
agenda.
be TBD. Okay, well, it is 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock on the nose.
Yeah. Like to
So
adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
Second,
Okay, by roll call. Lisa,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Mary, I. Okay. Declare the motion carried.